In this lesson, we're going to look at different methods for finding the greatest common factor of two numbers. So what is the greatest common factor? It's the largest factor that the numbers have in common. So let's answer this question. What is the greatest common factor of 30 and 36? One way we can figure this out is by listing all the factors of both numbers. So here are all the factors of 30. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 10, and 30. And they would all pass the divisibility rules that we learned in our previous lesson. The factors of 36 are 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 9, 12, 18, and 36. Now that we have all the factors listed for both numbers, we want to look and see what numbers they have in common. Well, they both have 1, 2, 3, and 6 as common factors. But the question is telling us to find the greatest common factor of the numbers. So we want to look for the largest factor that they have in common, which is the number 6. So we can say that 6 is the greatest common factor between 30 and 36. Another way involves using the factor tree. Now this method sometimes may seem to take a little bit more time, but you will find with more practice it gets a lot easier and comes in handy, especially when you're working with big numbers. So we need to figure out the factor trees for 30 and 36 and then write them as prime factorization. So here's the factor tree for 30. Now we notice at the end of each of the tree branches we have 2, 3, and 5. So the prime factorization for 30 is 2 times 3 times 5. And we do the same thing for our other number, 36, and then we look at all of the prime numbers at the end of the tree branches, and we can write them out as a series of products. So 2 times 2 times 3 times 3 equals 36. Now the next thing that we need to do is look to see which prime factors they have in common. Both numbers have a 2 and a 3 in common. Now even though 36 has 2 2s and 2 3s, since 30 only has 1 2, we can only count that one number 2. And it also has just 1 3, so we can only count one of those 3s as well. So the only numbers that they really have in common are a 2 and a 3. Now all we have to do is multiply the 2 and 3 together. We get 6. That is our greatest common factor between the two numbers. So we list out the prime factorization for both numbers, and we can use a factor tree to help us with that. And then we look to see what prime factors they have in common, and then just multiply those together. So to review, greatest common factor is the largest factor that the numbers have in common. And we have two methods that we can use. The first method involves listing all the factors of each number, and then finding the largest factor that they have in common. The second method involves listing the prime factorization of each number. So we set up the factor tree and then list the prime factorization, and then we want to find the prime factors that they have in common. And then lastly, multiply those prime factors together, and that gives you the greatest common factor of those numbers.